The Chicago Bulls have a competitive scrimmage practice yesterday. Patrick Williams looked like he's poised to make his return to the basketball court. And we're going to check in on the Chicago Bulls youth movement. All that and more on today's Chicago Bulls Central.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And so the Bulls had apparently a competitive practice yesterday. Now, I was going to do a kind of breaking news episode after the practice, but wasn't really a lot of details to come out of it. Some things that, it was good to hear, but not really anything too, substantial to come out of it. They had a short but hard scrimmage yesterday, reportedly by K.C. Johnson. Coby White and Patrick Williams both looked great in there. A lot of the teammates said that Patrick Williams looked really good, and also they forgot how strong Patrick Williams is. Just need Patrick Williams to remember that when he's on the actual NBA court. He did say that that Patrick Williams was super aggressive in practice and got to his spots and got downhill. And so everybody participated in the scrimmage. Josh Giddey left a little bit early with some back tightness, but other than that, everybody was a full participant. And looks like the Chicago Bulls are maybe going to come out of this little extended break that they've had here with their full roster ready to go on Friday. And I think that's a really important part for the Chicago Bulls team, right? I know people have their view on Patrick Williams, and this isn't a, be against that or whatever it is, but you just want your full complement of guys out there. I think that's an important thing for your basketball team to figure some things out. And Patrick Williams has also been really important to the Bulls defense in the way that he's able to guard centers and been effective in that. So I think that those things are just going to continue to help this Bulls team just be put in a better place, right? This Bulls team defensively doesn't necessarily have the highest ceiling already, so you want some of your defensive players out there when you can get them. And so we'll talk a little bit more about just how bad that Bulls defense is, because Elias Schuster has an article out there from Bleacher Nation that just really outlines just how bad the Bulls defense has been. And so we'll get into that a little bit later on. But, I think overall, you want everybody out there. You want everybody out there as much as you can. Patrick Williams, while maybe not taking that next step up that a lot of people wanted to see from him, is still an important part of the Bulls defense and what he's able to do both on the perimeter and now turning into a pretty decent post defender as well, which can be really versatile for the Chicago Bulls team. And so we'll take a look at that and see what it is when everybody gets back on the court. And, now Patrick Williams is stepping into a situation where, these young guys have shown some things while he's out there. Buzelis was completely basically out of the rotation outside of, some inconsistent minutes before Patrick Williams went down. And now Buzelis has really grown quite substantially, which we talked about in the episode, being a plus player on offense and defense for the Chicago Bulls and working himself into that, getting, starting to average over 18 minutes per game for the Bulls. So as that continues to develop, Patrick Williams is going to have to carve out his role here. And, we'll see what that is. We'll see what it looks like. If anything changes on Friday's game against Charlotte, the Bulls come out of this game and they get right back into the meat of the schedule. They have a game on Friday against Charlotte. Then they turn around on Monday against Toronto. And then they have another 2-day break. And then they face Boston on Thursday and Saturday next week, which, hey, man, after that last game against Boston, we'll see. We'll see. So, the Bulls finished this season really with some nice teams: Milwaukee, Atlanta, Milwaukee again, and then Charlotte, all before the end of the season. So, but end of the year, I should say, before the calendar flips on New Year's Day, where they face off against the Washington Wizards. So, we'll see. These next few games are going to be really important for the Bulls. The next 8 games or so, and we'll see where the Bulls sit and stand at that time. But in talking about the competitive scrimmage by the Bulls and Patrick Williams, coming back to a vastly different situation. Some people are asking the question, is he going to come back right to the starting lineup? We'll see there. But, with this practice, the Bulls have some major things they need to fix on their roster, right? They need, and some of this can be fixed with effort. Well, as far as it can get better with effort. I don't know how much of this is realistically fixable this season with the personnel that we have, unless a big move is made. And, the difference between the Bulls offense and the ranking around the league and the Bulls defense with the ranking that it is around the NBA could not be any more night and day. It just really is in a in a really weird spot when you look at it offensively. So the Bulls right now rank 4th in the league offensively at 119 points per game. You look at the field goal shooting percentage. They are 9th in the NBA, shooting 47.8% as a team. We're shooting 43 three-point attempts per game, which is 2nd in the NBA, and we're hitting that at a 38.4% clip. That's 5th in the NBA. We're the 4th most, our highest assist team in the league at 29.4 per game. We average 19 free throws per game, which is 28th in the league. And then we average 15.5 turnovers per game, which is 20th in the league. So I think when you look at that, the Bulls' high-octane offense, the fact that we have the highest pace in the league, which is creating more shots for the Bulls, more opportunities, which is then leading to us being a better scoring team. So much of us and what we're doing, though, is above the break threes, right? And that's a really big part of this Bulls offense, and also the assist percentage, right? That's really high. The Bulls are 5th in actual assists per game and 6th in assist percentage, meaning that we're moving the ball around, which is creating easy looks for us as well. So, those are some things really. Effective field goal shooting percentage, we're 3rd in the league at 57%. Offensive rebounding, 23.6 per game, which is 29th in the NBA. We need to really become, if we were to lessen the turnovers and get more offensive rebounds, that could really help so much for this Bulls team. And we have the 11th best overall offensive rating at 113.7. So, things are looking solid for the Bulls on offense. Now, those are overall numbers. I've told you guys before, the half-court numbers for the Bulls when they have to slow it down are just not good yet. And, we need to run more actual offense. It is up to the coaching staff in half-court offense and execution by the players. But then when you flip that and look at the defense by the Chicago Bulls, we give up 123 points per game. And shout out to Elias Schuster on Bleacher Nation for just, getting this information together. We're 29th in the league as far as points allowed per game. Opponents' field goal shooting percentage, 48.6%, 27th in the league. Not good. Opponent three-point shooting percentage, actually the 8th best, 35% basically is what the Bulls allow from three-point shooting percentage, even though it feels like it's more than that. I think it comes down to timely threes maybe with the Bulls when that comes down to. Opponent turnovers, 12.4 per game. That's 29th in the NBA. Steals, we're 26th in the NBA at 7 steals per game. 25th in the NBA in blocks at 4.6. We know we've needed some rim protection there for a minute. And defensive rebounds, we average 35.5 defensive rebounds per game, which is good enough for 4th in the NBA. So when you pair those things together, the Bulls' offense and defense are on exactly opposite ends of the spectrum. And I know that a lot of defense does come down to effort. I think you still need the right skill set to really take advantage of most things defensively. Points in the paint are really what kill the Bulls. While we're not necessarily giving up the three-point shooting percentage that we've had in prior years, we're allowing 57.5 points in the paint attempts per game, which is dead last in the NBA. Teams are feasting on us in the paint. We allow 18 points per game off turnovers. We allow 13 second chance points per game, which is 10th in the NBA. And we allow 16.8 fast break points, which we're 25th in the NBA, and that means that we're holding teams to a low number there. That's actually pretty good. Defensive rating, 117.4. That's terrible. The Bulls are a very, very bad defensive team. Very bad defensive team. And despite us being kind of better at the three-point defense than what I expected coming into the season, the paint defense, the interior defense is just terrible. And a big part of that, again, that's not – Vooch is bad defensively, but that's from our guards and our perimeter players. We have no point-of-attack defense. We're probably one of the worst point-of-attack defenses teams in the NBA. Lonzo helps, right, when he's out there and he's able to play. Io's a solid point-of-attack defender. That's really all that we have. We're not using Patrick Williams as a point-of-attack defender as much as we used to because we're now using him more on centers when you look at the balance there. So it's a lot of things still that the Bulls they still got to correct. They're not nearly this team where it's solid on both sides of the ball, and that's going to continue to hurt the team as well. And, we just got to get those things together. And hopefully with this extended break and Billy Donovan highlighting the fact that the team hasn't gotten a lot of chances to practice since the start of the season, hopefully this thing could start changing some for the Bulls. I have my concerns. I have my thoughts on it. It's not necessarily as favorable as some people, I'm sure, would love to hear me be on the Bulls defense, but or where it can go. But it's going to be something that hurts this team. And I think in this year, especially for people that are looking at this team and saying that we need to keep that top 10 pick, having a bad defense is definitely going to help the chances of that. Not bad. Having a terrible defense is definitely going to help the Bulls' chances in that because, you can have the best offense in the world, but we're still not the best offense, right? We have a really good, efficient offense at what we do well. What we don't do well in the half court is going to hurt us, right? But, we're still not the best offense in the league despite what the percentages and stuff say. And so because of that, that margin of error for the Bulls is still very small because of what we give up defensively. And, we'll see if this extended break we come out with anything different. One of the things also is how much now do the lineups change, right? And I talked about this a little bit over on Locked On Bulls, but, you just want to balance your lineups better. And I don't think that a change to the starting lineup is going to happen for the Bulls. I don't see Billy Donovan doing that. And I know some people have called for between Josh Giddey and Coby White and things like that. I just don't see Billy Donovan doing it. But one of the ways that he can kind of simulate that without actually changing the lineup is just bring in Dosunmu sooner, right? Bring him in at the 4-minute mark. And then depending on who you sit between Josh Giddey and Coby White, that other player can stagger with the bench. And Josh Giddey's been really good with the bench unit, but Coby White has a lot of degrees as well. Coby's been better with Josh Giddey's been better overall with but if you're looking at their two numbers, Coby's this season has been better with than Josh Giddey has been with but both are really effective when they play in that backcourt with Dosunmu. So that's something to look at for there as well. But, I just hope that Billy Donovan coaches. You talked about practice and what that could mean for your team, getting some time to practice. That kind of puts the highlight on you as a coach. What are you doing now to change your coaching philosophies? What are you doing now, after 25 games in, what have you learned about your roster to where you can balance some things out a little bit better and utilize players better, right? That's a continually growing and learning experience as well by coaches. And you just want to see what Billy Donovan's going to do with it. I'm not blaming everything this team is failing on Billy Donovan. Some of it, yes, absolutely. As the head coach, you get that. Some of it's execution. Like I said before, there's not a single play in Billy Donovan's playbook that calls for the Bulls to turn the ball over as much as they do, right? That's the execution of the players, and they got to get that together. And, hopefully also in balancing lineups as well, I want to talk about something, right? And, there's been a lot of kind of chatter that, as if Coby White is this much worse player than what he was last year, and the numbers just don't support that, right? When you look at what Coby White's given, now, I'm not saying that Coby White doesn't need to improve. The thing is that Coby White hasn't regressed, but he hasn't really grown either. He's basically the same player as last year. You look at last year, Coby White had a 23% usage rate. He's down to 22.4, so almost a full percentage down for Coby White. His true shooting percentage is actually better this year. He's shooting almost 60% true shooting. He was 57% last year. His assist percentage, despite being on ball less than what he was last year, he still has a 20% assist ratio, whereas last year it was 21%, but we know he was on ball a lot more than what he was last year. And then the turnover percentage, that's the place where Coby White has definitely regressed. He has a 10%, actually almost 11% turnover percentage. That was 8.5 last year. He got to get that shit together. He really has to get that together. So, Coby White, when you look at also just the advanced things for Coby White, again, he's not necessarily having a down year. He's doing a lot of the same things that he had last year. Now, I know that points per game total was down. That's because players like Zach LaVine's back. He's moving more off ball, which he's adapted pretty damn well to as well. His true shooting percentage is up considerably over last year. His usage rate, we talked about, that's down from last year. So, Coby White's still basically the same player, but different. And I think when you look at where his offense is coming at from as well, with the change of the Bulls offense, a lot's changed for Coby White. 52% of Coby White's shots are coming at above the break threes this year, which is a huge difference than what it was last year, where Coby White actually did more in the mid-range and in the paint. Only 40% of Coby White's offense, actually a little bit less than that, 39%, came from above the break threes last year. And so you look at that, at how often that is now for him. It was a lot more spread out for Coby, whereas, he did have the corner three more. He had the mid-range shot a lot more, which was almost 11% of his offense. He also got into the paint a lot more to score, right? He's doing, things now where he's passing out of it at 15% of his offense last year. This is a huge change now for Coby White when you look at it. Less than 10% on corner threes, 10% in the mid-range, which was his highest percent value last year, 8% only in the paint, which was another high volume thing for him last year. So, the way that we utilize Coby has changed, and he's adapting. Because listen, also when you look at it, 75% of Coby White's shots are assisted now, whereas last year he was the one doing the most of assisting in that. Only last year, 18%. So it's a very different thing, and I think sometimes we can look at that and say, look at those numbers and be like, well, why is it? Like, you got to look at the whys things are changing. Make no mistake about it. Coby White has to find a way to be more effective, and he's been more effective on catch and shoot things that I thought he was going to be this year. He's actually when you look at catch and shoot, he's shooting the ball right now 38% from catch and shoot. It was up to 40 at one point in the season. It's come down with this cold streak that he's been on. He got to get that shit together. And you look at the frequency as well. 37% of almost 38% of Coby White's shooting now is catch and shoot. And it wasn't nearly that last year. So, the role has definitely changed for Coby White. He has to adapt better to it for sure, right? And so as we see that continue to go for Coby White, it'll be interesting to see if he can get himself out of this cold stretch that he's in, because it's been bad. It is not bad to expect and want more for Coby White based off what he did last season, right? Coby White's he got to get it together, man. He's not good. The last 10 games for Coby White, he's averaging 15 points per game in 31 minutes, and he's shooting the ball 39% from the field. That's just not good. And Coby White has to be better. And so hopefully at this coming out of this extended break, players like Coby White play better, which leads me to the next thing I want to talk about. Let's check in on the Bulls youth movement, right? Let's check in. We know that this year was all about, well, not all about, but we went considerably younger with our roster. And so we then, wanted those young players to step up, right? And so when you look at the young players for the Chicago Bulls, of course, the first player that we're going to talk about is Buzelis. But Modest, in his time, he's really grown a whole hell of a lot for the Chicago Bulls. He's starting to turn into a really plus player, I said, on offense and defense, and it's going really good for him. Then you look at players like Ayo, who's coming out of his slump and playing really, really well over these last 5 games for the Chicago Bulls, 5 to 8 games really for the Chicago Bulls, where Ayo's starting to come along as well and playing a lot better. His usage rate is going up as well, and I think with that, we're seeing better Dosunmu. He's our best fast break player. If we don't have him on the fast break, things go bad. Now, we haven't necessarily had the impact defensively overall. You look at last year when Dosunmu was on the court, teams scored way less per 100 possessions. Right now, they're scoring 13 points more. I think that's an overall team thing, but you can't put that just on Ayo. But like you want to see a little bit better from Ayo, and we're starting to get that from Dosunmu. And then you look at the players like Patrick Williams, who it's been a mixed bag for Pat. Defensively, he's been really good. Offensively, he hasn't necessarily made the step that we thought or hoped for. The young guys in Dalen Terry and Julian Phillips are showing some things. Dalen is looking more and more like an actual NBA player than what he has in any other time in his history with the Bulls, right? So that's a benefit there as well. And so things are starting. Like Coby is, he's in a slump right now. Let's hope that he can come out of it. Ayo came out of his early season slump. Buzelis is playing much better. Josh Giddey, it's still been one of those things where you're looking at Giddey and it hasn't necessarily been, again, I'm not blaming this all on Josh Giddey. I think that the lineups play a big part of it. I also think the overall roster construction isn't necessarily taking advantage. And I think this too, like Billy Donovan clearly doesn't trust Josh Giddey, right? And in the situations in close games, Josh Giddey's not playing. He's not closing out games for the most part for the Bulls. He has some of that, right? But he's not really closing out those games for the Bulls. And this is despite his usage rate being around the same as what it was the last year in OKC. Now, his first years in OKC, he had a 25 and 26% usage rate. Last year in OKC, 24. He's 24.7. So he's like in between those two, right? But, also like Josh Giddey's not out there in fourth quarters. And you can clearly see, and like I talked about before, Josh Giddey is a confidence player, right? And so when Josh Giddey's confidence is shaken, you see that with the Bulls. And, right now the Bulls are, over 25 games, over 678 minutes. The Bulls are negative 6.1 points when Josh Giddey's on the court. Points per possession, 3.6 less per 100 possession. And so, it's just about how you utilize Giddey, I think, in my opinion. And we got to find a better way. That's why I talked about the lineups earlier. I do think that if we were to tweak the lineups, not the starting lineups per se, but just the way that we ebb and flow the lineups over the course of the game, you can see better from a couple of these players that we have. But overall, the Bulls youth movement, I think, has gone more positive than negative. We still haven't seen necessarily as much as I wanted to see from some of these guys. But, when you have the seasons that Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic are having for the team, it's not going to necessarily open up the shots that you wanted to see, right, for some of these other young guys. And, that's kind of understandable because this Bulls team is still out there trying to win basketball games. So, but 25 games in, still a lot of season left to be played. Over 50 games left to be played, still remaining in this season, and that's still enough to change a lot of things. I do think Lonzo Ball and then those minutes restriction being removed for him is going to give him a lot of opportunity, to help those young guys when he's on the court with them. I think he does help those guys a lot. We're just going to continue to see how things develop. It's crazy that one of the best young players for the team, as far as impact, is THT. Considering he's 24 but looks 44. But nonetheless, like he's out there, THC's balling. So, him, Jalen Smith is another young player, right, who, has a overall positive impact for the Bulls when he's out there. So these young guys are looking solid. But they don't, I would say that none of the young guys yet have really shown like, boom, that's the guy that we need to build around, right? So, and that may not be expected. They may not come to who we draft this year if we keep our draft pick. But, these guys are showing some things, but still a lot left on the table. But we'll see where it goes. Let me know your thoughts down below. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullscentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. I got some of your voicemails in. I have not played them. Voicemail bag is this weekend. Got a first-time caller, Super Duper Danko, called in. We're going to get to those voicemails over the course of the weekend. But love you guys. Go Bulls. See red, y'all. And I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.